Turned to walk away, the gatekeeper leaned in and whispered to her in the same language, "Don't drink or eat anything they offer you. There is a small door in the kitchen that can help you get out without using the main door." Kekeli's blood ran cold. She gave a quick polite thank you and turned to walk back to where Adepa was standing. Kekeli was a stunning light-skinned woman with curves that turned hers wherever she went. She was smart and beautiful. She had a magnetic charm that made her the admiration of everyone who crossed her path. She had been in a loving relationship with Ebo for 3 years, and their bond was something truly special. Now, the time had come to make their relationship official, and Kekeli couldn't wait to share the exciting news with her best friend, Adepa. Adepa had been Kekeli's rock for 15 years, ever since they first met in high school. Adepa, with her dark skin and radiant smile, was the same age as Kekeli, though her life had been quite different. She had 3 children from past relationships, none of which had turned out the way she hoped. Determined to raise her children on her own, Adepa poured all her love and energy into them. Kekeli, however, loved Adepa's children as if they were her own. Coming from a well-off family, Kekeli often treated the kids to vacations abroad, making sure their school fees and education were taken care of. And whenever Adepa's trading business fell short, Kekeli was there, covering rent, bills and anything else they needed. One evening, while Adepa was at her shop selling, Kekeli couldn't contain her excitement any longer. She drove to the store, eager to share the news. As she entered, she called out, "Adepa, Adepa, where are you? I have something amazing to tell you." Adepa looked up, curious about her friend's joy. "What is it? You are making me anxious here." Kekeli was practically bubbling over with happiness. "I want you to guess," she teased. Adepa rolled her eyes. "You know I'm terrible at guessing. Just tell me already." "I want to be as happy as you." Kekeli grinned, enjoying the suspense. "Okay, fine." With a flourish, Kekeli revealed a sparkling diamond ring and said, "We have a wedding to plan. Ebo proposed to me today." Adepa's eyes went wide with shock and joy. "Oh my goodness, that ring is gorgeous. It's practically glowing." She couldn't believe it. "Kekeli, I'm so happy for you, my friend. This is incredible." Kekeli laughed, holding her friend close. "We are going to have the most beautiful wedding ever." Adepa grinned from ear to ear. "Absolutely. We are going to make this day unforgettable." They spent hours talking about the wedding, discussing every detail, how it would unfold, the colors, the guests, and all the dreams they hoped to realize. Kekeli was full of excitement, but she knew there was still a lot of work to be done. She nudged Adepa, urging her to hurry up and pack her things so they could pick up the kids from Adepa's mom's place and head home for the night. Once they arrived at Adepa's place, Kekeli dropped her off. She said her goodbyes, and as Adepa stepped out of the car, she couldn't help but shout, "My best friend is the latest bride-to-be in town." The sound of her voice echoed through the compound, and the two of them giggled before Kekeli drove off into the night. But once she got home, Adepa couldn't sleep. The weight of her thoughts kept her awake long into the night. She kept replaying the events of the day, her best friend's engagement and the life Kekeli was about to have. Adepa's mind raced, and her heart ached as she thought about her own life. "I've been in 3 different relationships, and none of them worked out," she mused, her thoughts darkening. "Instead, they have burdened me with children. And yet, this is Kekeli's first real relationship, and it's already leading to marriage. Why does life always favor her?" Adepa couldn't help but feel a rising resentment. "I work so hard to provide for my children, and there are days I can't even afford to feed them properly. I struggle just to make ends meet. And Kekeli, She has everything at her fingertips, her family's wealth, her beauty, everything she could ever want, and to top it all, she is being proposed to with a diamond ring after just 3 years of dating. A wave of jealousy burned through her. She doesn't even know what it's like to truly struggle. She's never had to fight for survival the way I have. She's never had to make tough choices, never had to sacrifice her happiness for the sake of her children. And now she's going to marry the love of her life while I'm stuck with nothing but my responsibilities. The more Adepa thought, the darker her emotions became. She couldn't bear the idea of her best friend starting a new life with Ebo. If Kekeli gets married, Adepa thought bitterly, I won't have the support I've always had. She'll be too busy with her own family. I'll be left struggling even more than I do now. I will be alone. The jealousy turned into something darker. I can't let her marry him. If she does, I will lose everything I have. I will lose the benefits she's given me, her help, her money, her generosity. I can't let her have it all. I won't let her be happy while I suffer. With her heart racing, Adepa's thoughts spiraled further. She became fixated on the idea of stopping Kekeli's marriage. If I can't have the life Kekeli has, then I won't let her have it either. Adepa's heart was filled with jealousy, bitterness and a growing desire to destroy her best friend's happiness, even if it meant harming her. As the wedding preparations began, everything seemed to fall into place. Kekeli was overjoyed and kept herself busy with the endless tasks that came with planning the biggest day of her life. She shared every detail with Adepa, from the dress fitting to the guest list and even the compliments Ebo showered on her. Each word from Kekeli, each mention of how happy Ebo made her, only fueled the hatred that was growing inside her. The jealousy had taken root and it festered within her like an infection, growing stronger with each passing day. 2 weeks before the wedding, Adepa was still uncertain about how to act on her increasingly malevolent thoughts. She knew that if she didn't do something soon, she might lose her chance to stop the wedding. Every night, Adepa lay awake, her mind racing. The wedding day was fast approaching and the clock was ticking. She knew that if she didn't act quickly, everything would slip away and Kekeli would be married, leaving her behind, alone and more resentful than ever. In her heart, a cold, calculating plan began to form. Adepa's love for her best friend had turned into something darker, and she was prepared to do whatever it took to destroy the life Kekeli was about to build. The night before the wedding, Adepa showed up at Kekeli's house with a mischievous grin, asking her to come along to a friend's house party. You need to have some fun before tomorrow. It's your big day, she said, trying to convince Kekeli to join her. Kekeli, though tired and not convinced, hesitated. Adepa, you know we should be getting some sleep by now. I've had such a long day and tomorrow is my wedding day. I can't be out at parties. I haven't even been invited, and I don't even know who is hosting this thing. But Adepa wasn't giving up. She kept pushing, her voice sweet and coaxing. Come on, Kekeli. I promised my friend I will show up, and I don't want to be alone at the party. Plus, this is the last time we'll ever do something like this. The old Kekeli I know wouldn't even go to parties, not to talk of after marriage. They both giggled at the thought, but Adepa wasn't about to let us go. Please, Kekeli, just this one time. Kekeli sighed, finally relenting. Fine, let's go, but we have to be back early. It's already 10 p.m. We have to be home by 1 a.m. latest. That's fine by me, Adepa agreed. Kekeli quickly slipped into something casual, grabbed her purse, bag and her phone, and they headed outside. Just as she was heading towards her car, Adepa stopped her. Wait, Adepa said, with a slight hesitation. I don't know the exact place the party is at. My friend sent one of his guys to pick us up. I gave him the location and he'll be here in 5 minutes. Kekeli's mood shifted immediately. She didn't like the idea of leaving her car behind and heading to an unknown party. Adepa, you should have told me this earlier, she said, a hint of irritation in her voice. I knew if I had told you, you would have found an excuse not to come. Adepa replied, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. Just then, Adepa's phone buzzed with a message. He's at the junction waiting, Adepa said, turning towards Kekeli with a grin. They walked to the junction, and when they arrived, they saw a handsome guy in dreads, wearing a black shirt and a jeans, standing in front of a sleek white Range Rover. They greeted him and he responded. You must be Kekeli, the guy said, with a friendly smile. Kekeli raised an eyebrow. Yes, she replied, but something about him knowing her name caught her off guard. How did he know that? As they got into the back of the car, Kekeli leaned towards Adepa and whispered, How did he know my name? Oh, that, Adepa said casually. When you said you were coming, I mentioned to my friend that I was coming along with my best friend and she's called Kekeli. Kekeli wasn't completely convinced by the explanation, and her discomfort was visible. Her face tightened with suspicion. Noticing the change in Kekeli's expression, Adepa laughed softly. Come on, Kekeli, you know I would never do anything to harm you. Kekeli forced a smile, but her unease didn't fade. I know you wouldn't, she said slowly, before pausing for a moment. But there's something about this whole thing that doesn't sit right with me. She sighed and then added, Never mind, let's go. And with that, they drove off, but Kekeli's uneasy feeling lingered in her gut, though she couldn't quite put her finger on why. The car came to a halt after about 30 minutes of driving, and Kekeli was startled to find herself in front of a grand mansion with a massive gate. The guy driving them smiled and said, We are here. As he spoke, two gatekeepers opened the wide gate, allowing the car to drive in. The driveway was lined with sleek Porsche cars, parked all over the compound. Kekeli's curiosity grew as they entered the grounds, but something felt off. Just before they could enter the house, the driver turned and signaled for them to wait. I will check if everything is in order before I call you inside, he said, and with that he walked off, leaving Kekeli and Adepa standing in the large yard. Kekeli, growing uneasy, glanced at Adepa. Why are we being asked to wait out here? Why can't we just go in? She asked. You told me you've informed your friend we were coming. What's going on? Adepa seemed equally puzzled. I did, Kekeli, but I don't know why we are being told to wait outside. I can't explain it, but since they asked us to wait, I think we should give it a little time. Kekeli frowned, but reluctantly agreed. All right, let's wait, but I don't think we should be out here this long. They stood there, the minutes ticking by. 30 minutes passed, and Kekeli's patience was wearing thin. Her legs began to ache from standing, and she grew increasingly frustrated. Adepa, I can't stand here any longer. We've been waiting for almost 30 minutes and no one has even come to speak to us. Your friend isn't answering her calls either. This is ridiculous. I know, Kekeli, but what else can we do? Adepa said. I'm done waiting. If no one comes in the next 30 minutes, I'm calling Able to pick me up. Kekeli said, determined. She turned and started walking towards the gatehouse where the gatekeepers were. I'm going to sit down. My legs are killing me. She approached the gatekeepers and greeted them with a polite smile. Excuse me, would it be possible to get a chair to sit on? One of the men entered a small room and came back with a chair. Here you go, madam, he said. Kekeli smiled gratefully. Thank you, she replied. As she sat down, the man added, You are the only person who is recognized as human beings. The others come and don't even look at us. The comment caught Kekeli off guard. She felt a wave of discomfort wash over her, but pressed on, trying to understand more. "What do you mean by that?" she asked softly. The man seemed to hesitate, but then shrugged. "It's nothing, madam. I'm just glad you have shown us some respect. Most people come here and act like we are even invisible." Kekeli felt a pang of unease. She wanted to know more, but the man simply smiled politely and turned to walk back into the small room with his colleague. Kekeli sat back, her mind racing with questions she couldn't quite answer. As she looked around the compound, the earlier excitement of the party had faded, replaced with a growing sense of discomfort. Something wasn't right, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She glanced over at Adepa, who still seemed calm, though a bit distant. While Kekeli sat on the chair, scrolling through her phone to pass the time, she couldn't help but overhear a conversation between the two gatekeepers. Curiosity piqued, she leaned in slightly to listen more closely, grateful that they were speaking in Ewe, a language she was fluent in thanks to her mother. Growing up, her mom had always spoken to her in Ewe, and Kekeli had become completely fluent. One of the gatekeepers said to his colleague in Ewe, "This lady is very beautiful and respectful. She is the only person who has recognized her since we started working here. I wish I could tell her the danger she's put herself in by coming here in the first place." The chilling words sent a shiver down Kekeli's spine. She was frozen for a moment, but her instincts urged her to stay still and listen more. She needed to hear more to understand what was going on. The second gatekeeper replied, "These young girls are in for money. These men will keep killing them like pigs because they don't want to use their lives for something meaningful." Kekeli's heart raced. Panic set in. She immediately pulled out her phone and sent a quick message to Adepa, calling her over. But before she could explain, her gut told her not to reveal what she had just overheard. Something didn't feel right. Instead, she asked Adepa if she had heard from her friends yet and suggested they leave since it was getting late. Just as she was waiting for Adepa's response, the guy who had entered the house earlier reappeared. He signaled for them to come inside. Adepa, eager to move forward, took the lead and began walking towards the house. Kekeli, still shaking, stood up from the chair and handed it back to the gatekeeper. She then thanked him in Ewe, her voice steady, despite the turmoil inside her. The man stood frozen for a moment, his face full of shock. "Can you say that again?" he asked, his voice low, clearly taken aback. Kekeli repeated, "Thank you. I appreciate it in Ewe," then added that she would be back shortly. As she turned to walk away, the gatekeeper leaned in and whispered to her in the same language, "Don't drink or eat anything they offer you. There is a small door in the kitchen that can help you get out without using the main door." Kekeli's blood ran cold. She gave a quick polite thank you and turned to walk back to where Adepa was standing, trying to keep her composure. The words of the gatekeeper echoed in her mind. Should she leave now or go inside? Her mind was in a frenzy, her thoughts racing with confusion and fear. If she left, she feared things might escalate, but if she stayed, she might be walking right into something dangerous. She tried to calm herself, focusing on playing it cool and acting normal. She wouldn't draw suspicion. She needed to figure out a way without alarming anyone. When she reached where Adepa and the man was standing, the man asked, "Were you speaking with the gatekeeper?" Kekeli shook her head. "No," she replied, forcing a smile. She didn't want to reveal anything that might give her away. The man seemed to accept her answer, and they continued walking into the house.
What do you think will happen next? Find out in part 2. The drama is just beginning to unfold and things are about to get even more intense.